Welcome to a Dead Squirrel in the Woods Productions. I am your host, Nicholas, and thank you for joining me for this week's bonus content episode. So now, on our main show with my sister, we covered the UFO connection to the Michigan Triangle. Well, I figured we're not done with the UFOs on the main show, so I wanted to keep going on the UFO topics and some incidents in Wisconsin. Now, let's set the stage a little bit here. Now, if you look at the town of Mellen, Wisconsin, it might stand out. It might not stand out as a place to be associated with weird tales or visitors or other worlds. Some of you might not even know what it is or where. And that was the case for me. I had never heard of this town. But this is about a small town with about 1,000 residents in the wilds of Ashland County, Wisconsin. This is a peaceful area where everyone knows everyone. It is known for its beautiful nature, hiking trails, and camping. Visitors come from all over the country to see this area. Not only is this a great area to connect with nature, to do outdoorsy stuff, whatever you want to say, this is the home to one of the weirdest UFO events in the state of Wisconsin to have occurred. So, with that said, let's move on into the event. Now, about 9 p.m. on March 13th of 1975, the Baker family was just settling in for the night for their at-home schedule. John Baker, 12 years old, was in his room with his older brother Monty, and they were listening to the radio, and their father was in the living room downstairs watching TV. Now, the mother Shirley was getting some of the final housework done before bedtime. I don't know, that might be like the dishes, cleaning up after the kids. I don't know, stuff like that. Now, Jane was 15 years old. She was putting the cats in the garage, as was the routine task for her every night. So, it was a normal night in the Baker household. They were all doing what they would normally do, their routine. Little did they know that this was not going to be a normal night. It was a dark evening, and the surrounding rural area did not help guide Jane as she carried the cats. But, like I said, this was a routine task for her. And it's not like she couldn't do this with her eyes closed. Then suddenly, it was not so dark. There was a light coming from the road, but as Jane grew closer, she was surprised by the sight. It was a large silver disc right on the gravel, approximately 150 yards away. This was not just at the crescent of a small rise. This had a row of green and red lights alternating, blinking on and off. Now, the top was a dome that had a bright yellowish glow and made a series of high-toned noises. This light was so bright it lit up the entire hill. This was so frightening that Jane called out to her family. This would bring her father and brothers running out. Now, after everybody was out there, Mr. Baker, now, I don't know what he was thinking, but He wanted to get a closer look and investigate it. Well, his wife told him not to get any closer or she might never see him again. Of course, Mr. Baker did not listen, and he crept closer to the thing, and as he did that, the lights dimmed and the blinking lights stopped. Now, that is not I don't know what he was thinking, but he was able to get somewhat of a description of it, and it was about 12 feet in diameter and 6 feet in height. There was also a square area with rounded corners in the middle that appeared to be an open hatch. He went closer still as the noise from the object got louder, and the cries from his wife intensified. He would later say, "It felt I could have looked inside if I'd gotten closer. I couldn't see any details. It made a high, whiny, sing-songy noise." Now, I never heard a noise like it before, he would say. Now, there was also a sound of metal hitting as someone or something was repairing or fixing machinery. Some bangs were louder than others, like a heavy hit and then a light tap. There was no pattern to it. This was what snapped him out of his trance or deep fascination. His intrigue turned into fear, and he quickly rejoined his family. They wasted no time in contacting the authorities after he investigated, of course. Now, as he tried to explain what was going on, there was a large boom like the breaking of the sound barrier rattling the house. So they looked outside, and the object was gone, just vanished out of nowhere. When the undersheriff arrived, there was nothing there to be seen, and the object left no evidence that it had been there. John would remember, "My father asked us to keep it confidential, and my brother told me not to say anything to anyone at school. We agreed that this was something we would just keep in the family. We didn't want people to think we were crazy." My brother cried himself to sleep. He was so terrorized. "They're going to come back and get us. They're going to come back and get us," he said, all night. All night, those logs would crack and pop as they froze and expanded. Every time I thought, "Oh my God, they're back." So the undersheriff went to go back to the station and thought about what he heard from the frightened family. Now, he would say that Baker was very upset, and he is pretty reliable and a dependable person, and he had no reason to disbelieve him, but he was excited. I had to tell him to take it easy, cool down, and tell him what it is. I firmly believe the Baker family did see an object. Now, you may think, is that it? Well, no. Little did the undersheriff know that this would just be the beginning. Upon reaching the station, he found out that the phones had been ringing off the hook. there were dozens of other reports of UFOs. I'll say that again. There were dozens of other reports of UFOs. The calls came in so fast that some of the deputies went outside and looked into the sky to see what was going on. Well, they would not be disappointed. They saw one object come from the south going in a northerly direction. There was a second one that was a little lower than the first. We watched these two for maybe an hour and a half, they would say. Then the third one came from the north going south. That one was the lowest. They could see different colored lights on it. That one stayed in the air for approximately 10 to 15 minutes, just moving sort of in a jig, going upland, down, making a big U-turn, going back, down, up and down again. We had more cars in the U.S., in the northern part of Ashland County, and I was we had 2 more cars in the U.S. they were transmitting to deputies in all the locations. They had 2 more cars that were positioned in the northern part of Ashland County. And the 2 deputies were watching from a fire tower on Birch Hill, which is northwest of them on Lake Superior. When one of the objects they were watching took off at a very high rate of speed, one of the deputies radioed and told the undersheriff, it's going your way. And all of a sudden he said, I see it coming, and his radio went blank. So radio communications were taken down. Now, having an odd experience himself, the deputy would explain everything got so bright I could read a newspaper. I could see my shadow on the ground. I was leaning against my car with the microphone in my hand, and whatever it was coming from the west behind me going east across the road, all I could see was a bright glow maybe a couple of blocks behind me at treetop level or just a little bit higher. It sounded like a big gust of wind coming through the roads. I was talking on the radio the whole time, but they only heard part of my transmission. They heard me talking, then whoosh, and then me talking again. So communications were quite unstable. 10 sheriff's deputies would spend the night chasing UFOs throughout Ashland and Iron counties, with radios in constant chatter between them. No one doubted at this point that the Bakers did see the object. If they did, they are serious deniers at that point. The skies were alive with strange lights the whole night. The next morning did not stop from getting weirder for the Baker family, though. Jane went out to the area where the object was first seen. But the object was hovering over a nearby swamp this time. As she saw the object, her dog was with her and was pawing at its ears as if there was a loud noise. Now, Jane felt brave. Well, she wasn't the night before, but here she felt brave and went closer to get a better look, but the dog refused to go. She had to carry it back to the house. And of course, when she came back, you guessed it, it was gone. Now, as you can see, this story was crazy. And it did make it to the news and became a media storm. And can you guess who got harassed the most? Well, if you guess the Bakers, since they got the closest to it, you'd be right. Journalists nagged them. Visitors, curious of the site, came to their home in droves. They also were approached to appear on documentaries, TV programs. It went as far as the mysterious figures in Shadow Men in Black. This was attention that was not welcome. And I don't think any of us would welcome that attention. And the harder, and the more they isolated, the harder the outside world would push. So, John Baker never forgot it when he was asked decades later. Well, I'm thinking it probably, I don't know, I'm thinking it was maybe alien life. I'm thinking maybe the materials in the Pinocchio Hills might be what attracted them. I mean, he did see he did hear banging like they were doing repairs, so maybe there's a mineral there that they need for their thing. I don't know. Continuing on though with him is maybe they use the flashing lights to communicate or something. To tell the truth, I'm not 100% sure what it was, which would identify with UFO, unidentified flying object. I know the government is admitting that this stuff is real. I bet if you could get those files and see the Air Force really saw that night, it would be phenomenal. Maybe that could still happen one day. Whatever it is that happened, one thing is for sure. There were plenty of witnesses, and law enforcement saw whatever it was, regardless if it can be explained or not. And I doubt it can be recreated. But what were the lights? And were the lights its way of communicating? And what was the goal that night? Hopefully we'll find out one day. Not banking on it, but hopefully we'll find out one day. Well, thank you for joining me. This has been a Dead Squirrel in a Woods Productions. This episode was written and produced by me. I would like to thank you for listening, and be sure to visit our webpage for more info. We are also on Facebook. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and thanks again for listening, and be sure to keep an eye out for future episodes. And in a bonus, this weekend, my sister and me, we are going to be visiting the old Glenbeulah High School and doing a haunted scavenger hunt. And we will also be helping with the cleanup at the Sheboygan Asylum, the Sheboygan County Asylum, as they are getting ready for their tours this year. And I have volunteered to be part of that. I will be doing, as of right now, I'm scheduled for 3 nights in the asylum doing leading tours. So if you're in the Sheboygan area listening to this, that is a great venue to go to experience.